Okay, what you're looking at are the instructions for the gun for the T19 half-track howitzer by Dragon. Dragon directions are notoriously bad, and this one is no exception. What we have here is one page for one sprue of parts, and more questions than anyone has a right to expect from a set of directions. To start with, if you notice, it does indicate that one part is not to be glued. That's the traversing mechanism, right and left, for the gun carriage. What it doesn't show you is that if you want it to elevate, all these parts here, the A41 on one side and the A28 on the other side, must not be glued into place also to allow them to pivot, give you your elevation. It also means that the A19 part here, the subassembly for sighting, can't be glued into place where it shows it, and must be glued into the flat on the back side of the mechanism in order for it to pivot. Also, the A9 part and A38 part are snapped into place on the frame or into A32, also not glued. They form this piston on the back. If you want it to move, you can't glue that into place. Dragon should have figured this out by now, that if something should be glued, you should glue it. If something should not be glued, as in that part, you shouldn't have to. It should be marked. You shouldn't have to try to figure things out. The only reason I figured this out was because of the A30 piece and the A29 piece. I couldn't figure out where they are to sit on the bottom of the elevation mechanism in order to hold the gun shield into place. It simply shows them stuck to the bottom, but not where. Does it sit flat on the bottom? It's got a little notch in it, but there's no corresponding pin on the underside. So I'm hoping that once I get this assembly completely put together, I can take the gun shield then, I have one of the pieces taped to it so I don't lose it, and try to figure out how it's supposed to sit. Now, I used the Edward upgrade set for it, PE upgrade set for it, and it has a couple of really nice things. There's not many pieces of PE for the gun carriage. There's this nice strip that sits in the middle that covers the back of the seam line, so that when the gun is in battery, ready to fire, it's not seen. The seam line, that is. You see the nice PE part. I wish all the kits had that. That's a really nice little feature. Also, there's this little shelf, for lack of a better reason, or better term. It is in the kit. There's a plastic one, but it's not nearly as nice or detailed as this PE one, so I put that in. And then on the side right here is what I believe is a foundry marking. That also is PE. On the gun itself, you had two set pieces of PE. On the very back, there's a little round circle with two bolt heads on it. And on the front, it has this kind of figure 8 looking thing. And if you glue it right over the top of the existing plastic part, it really gives some nice definition. As you can see, the kit came with a turned aluminum barrel, and it is rifled. So you get the nice rifling on it. It'll have to be painted black at the very back, otherwise you'll see the fact that it's not a full barrel. Overall, it's a typical Dragon kit. Nice when it's done, but getting there is quite the journey. Another one done. This is the Dragon T19 with 105mm howitzer. And, well, first let me say it was a typical Dragon kit. Beautiful kit, beautiful results, maniac instructions. There were just so many things that confused me and made it a difficult build that it shouldn't have been. The parts themselves went together flawlessly, but when you have instructions that are intentionally cryptic and misleading, and in some cases not even the right instructions, hence the lack of the 30 cal at the back, the instructions for the kit 30 cal have you building it in the configuration for the ring mount that would have gone over the passenger's seat of the cab, as opposed to the pedestal mount on the back. There were a few other little odds and ends and issues with the instructions that require you to do a lot of research on the internet actually before you build it, looking at photographs and so on and so forth. What did I do to it different? The clamps, I got a PE set from Edward and replaced all the clamps. I love PE, I do, but sometimes I think they give you way too much, and some of the parts aren't as nice as in this case, the Dragon parts. Dragon does a really great job with their little tiny plastic details. For instance, the gun shield. They wanted you to cut off the upper half of the gun shield and replace, and then file off the hinges. Whereas the plastic one is nice and thin, set at the right angle, and the hinge detail is exquisite. Now, I did opt for the PE, replacing the plastic kit support brackets on the front, as they look like little plastic axes more than the pieces they should. So those are PE. I like to use PE where I think it will accent or improve the look of things, and mostly I find that that's in replacing the Pioneer tool clamps and other clamps. These aren't Pioneer tools. I believe this is the rod for cleaning the gun, and these are sighting stakes on this side. But the clamps here look so much nicer than the kit parts, so they got replaced. Then there was a few on the gun itself that really accented it up nicely. This will be a foundry mark on one of the parts. The barrel ends, the little piece on the barrel end, were a nice touch. And I used the kit came with 4 fuel can tie downs, so I added one on the back, and it's called a blitz can, at least that's what the instructions on the Tamiya kit call it. It's from their vehicle accessory kit. I wanted a water can on it, so I put that on there along with a little collapsible water bucket. And you probably can't read it, but if you look under a microscope, pretty much so microscope, I painted the word water on the top of the can and put a white stripe around it in accordance with some recommendations from some of my fellow modelers after doing a little research. I also added the tarps. There's a sleeping bag inside. Tarps on the fender and strapped across the front from the same Tamiya kit. Overall, it was a lot of fun to build. It really was. I learned a lot about the vehicles. I'm very impressed with the modularness of this particular vehicle, the M2, M3 Scout car, and how it easily converted to a half track, and then the difference variants of that. They have a 81mm version, a quad, 50 cal anti-aircraft version. That's the one I want to get next when I find it. And it's just a beautiful little kit if you can deal with the stupidity of the instructions. And I guess that's about it. Thanks for watching.